Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something a little different, something a lot more real. You've probably heard tales of mighty Persian kings, grand palaces, and golden empires. You picture powerful figures, perhaps even benevolent ones, ruling with wisdom. But tonight, we're peeling back their gilded veneer, stepping past the romanticized history books, and diving into the brutal, often terrifying reality of what it truly meant to sit on, or even exist beneath, the throne of Achaemenid Persia. It wasn't always glory. It was often grit, blood, and a chilling unseen power. Before we plunge into the heart of this ancient world, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blankets tight, and let's begin our journey through the forgotten secrets of kings. Imagine, for a moment, that you are not nestled in your warm bed, surrounded by the soft glow of a screen, or the gentle hum of modern life, but are, instead, a shepherd, a farmer, perhaps a minor craftsman living in the rugged, sun-baked hills of Ansh. In the mid-6th century BC, your world is incredibly small, bounded by dusty trails winding between arid peaks, the incessant bleating of your sheep, and the relentless, unforgiving rhythm of the seasons. You know, truly know, the taste of sun-baked bread, gritty with dust, the raw, chapping sting of cold wind on your exposed face in winter, and the constant, gnawing hum of worry about meager harvests, about dwindling water supplies, or the sudden, terrifying raids of nomadic tribes who sweep down from the highlands like hungry wolves. Your local king, Canvas's eye, is a vassal, a lesser lord subservient to the distant, yet ever-present, power of the Medes. His authority feels distant, diluted, a thin echo of the greater power that looms over your arid land. You understand hierarchy. You understand submission. It's not an abstract concept from a textbook, but the stark, undeniable law of your life, etched into the very soil you tread with calloused feet. You are a small, vulnerable creature in a vast, indifferent landscape, utterly dependent on the stability, however fragile, of the established order. Then comes the change. It starts as whispers, at first, like dry leaves skittering across the parched ground before a storm, carrying portents of upheaval. Rumors of a new leader, Cyrus, the son of your king, a man of ambition, of undeniable destiny. You hear the stories, perhaps from a passing merchant whose face is grim with news from afar, perhaps from a nervous kinsman who serves in the local levy, his eyes wide with an unsettling mix of excitement and fear. This Cyrus, they say, is different. He has fire in his eyes, a strategizing mind that sees beyond the immediate horizon, and a vision that stretches far beyond the mundane boundaries of your dusty valley. He is not content to simply bow to the Median overlords. He chafes, they whisper, under their yoke, and his ambition is contagious, spreading like a fever through the young men who gather in the village square, boasting of ancient glories and future conquests. You see the preparations, the gathering of men, not the grand, disciplined armies of later, more organized empires, but your neighbors, your cousins, young men and seasoned warriors alike, hardened by generations of struggle against the land and against each other, now armed with bronze-tipped spears, crude bows carved from tough wood, and leather shields scraped thin by years of use. You watch them leave, their faces a mixture of bravado and quiet apprehension, knowing, with a chilling certainty, that some will never return. You feel the knot of fear tightening in your stomach, a cold, clenching dread that has nothing to do with your own immediate safety, but everything to do with the precarious balance of your entire world. If Cyrus wins, what then? Will new taxes be imposed? Will the gods be pleased or angered? If he loses, what then? Will the Medes sweep down in retribution, burning everything in their path? The consequences for your small, hard-won life are immense, crushing, regardless of the outcome. You are merely an observer, a helpless pawn in a game played by giants. The tales filter back, disjointed and terrifying, carried by desperate refugees or wounded stragglers. Battles fought in arid valleys, where the dust of conflict mingled with the dust of the desert. The clang and clash of bronze weapons echoing for miles. The guttural screams of men mixing with the terrified cries of horses. You hear of the Median king Astyages, once thought invincible, now in retreat. His own nobles, it is rumored, turning against him in a moment of weakness or opportunism. You hear of sieges, of cities starved into submission, their populations reduced to eating roots and bark, of desperate sorties from gates that lead only to certain death. You don't see the grand strategy, the brilliant military maneuvers. You only feel the visceral ripple effect. Food prices soaring to impossible heights. The constant gnawing fear of marauders preying on the weak. The occasional wounded soldier limping back to your village, his uniform ragged, his eyes hollow with the unimaginable horrors he's witnessed. You hear him speak in hushed, trembling tones of fields stained red with blood, of the unbearable, metallic smell of death hanging heavy in the air for days, of vultures circling overhead like dark, patient omens waiting for their feast. This isn't the glorious conquest described in later, sanitized inscriptions. This is the messy, visceral, brutal reality of men killing men for power, for land, for survival. Then comes the news, definite and undeniable, carried by breathless runners and confirmed by the sudden, palpable shift in the air of authority. Cyrus has won. Astyages is captured, his reign ended. The mighty Median Empire, which had overshadowed your existence for generations, has fallen, absorbed into this new, burgeoning power led by your king's son. You don't cheer, not truly. Your heart doesn't swell with pride. Instead, you feel a different kind of awe, a shiver that runs down your spine, a cold awareness of immense, almost supernatural power. This isn't just a new ruler. This is a new force, a tidal wave that has swept across the known world. You see the caravans of tribute, laden with goods, begin to move with newfound urgency, the conscription of young men for further, ever-expanding campaigns becoming a relentless demand, the ever-widening reach of this new authority seeping into every corner of your life. You are now, whether you like it or not, part of something immense, something terrifyingly powerful, something beyond your comprehension. Cyrus, your king, is no longer just the local lord you occasionally saw passing through. He is now the king of Anshan, king of Persia, and soon, you hear whispers, he will declare himself king of kings. And you, in your humble dwelling, feel the tightening, inexorable grip of that ambition. You understand, with a chilling clarity, that this empire isn't built on treaties alone, or on benevolent proclamations of unity. It's built on the sweat and toil of men and women like you, on the fear instilled by overwhelming conquest, on the unyielding, almost divine will of a man who saw no limit to his reach, no boundary to his dominion. You feel the change in the very air, the subtle shift in how your local officials speak. Their tones sharper, their demands more immediate. How the soldiers patrol with a newfound swagger, their eyes scanning every face with an unsettling intensity. There's a new efficiency, a new ruthlessness to the administration. When orders come from the capital, a place you've only ever heard tales of, they are not suggestions to be considered. They are commands, absolute and unquestionable, backed by the implicit, crushing threat of a vast, unseen military machine. You see the scribes, serious men with their styluses and clay tablets, meticulously recording everything, your harvests, your livestock, your very presence, tracking every resource, every individual. Your small village, once somewhat isolated, a world unto itself, is now firmly mapped into a larger, sprawling administrative network. You are no longer just a person with a name and a family. You are a number, a resource, a subject within a rapidly expanding, utterly comprehensive system. The very concept of peace changes for you. It's not the absence of conflict. It's the enforced stillness, the suffocating quiet under the colossal shadow of an unchallenged power. You know, deep down, that somewhere, far off, beyond the mountains and deserts, armies are still moving. New lands are being brought under the unyielding sway of Cyrus. You hear of Lydia falling, of Croesus, the fabulously wealthy king, dethroned and perhaps spared, but his power utterly broken. You hear of Babylon, the ancient, magnificent city, yielding almost without a fight to Cyrus's forces, who marched in not entirely as conquerors, but as shrewd liberators from an unpopular ruler. Even then, the narratives are carefully crafted. But even liberation, even the promise of stability, has its profound costs. You see the resources of your land diverted, the most skilled artisans and laborers taken from their villages to work on monumental projects in distant cities you will never see. You understand that your wheat, your livestock, your precious labor are all contributing to something immense and grand, something that you will never truly benefit from directly, beyond the fragile, uneasy stability it might offer. You are a tiny, expendable cog in a massive, grinding machine, and that machine, you realize, with a cold dread, has a truly voracious, insatiable appetite for everything. You feel the impact of this new empire most acutely in the slow, inexorable centralization of power. Decisions are no longer made locally by elders or trusted leaders. They emanate from a distant, glittering court, from individuals you will never see or know. You hear of the king's council, of powerful satraps ruling vast, unfamiliar provinces with absolute authority, their word as law. You understand that your life, once somewhat self-directed, governed by local customs and traditions, is now thoroughly intertwined with the whims and ambitions of this distant, all-powerful figure. You are subject to a greater force, one that can demand your taxes, demand your sons for military service in distant lands, demand your absolute obedience, without question or recourse. There is no appeal, no argument, only compliance. The secrets of ancient Persian kings begin here. With this foundational understanding, the empire was forged not just through military genius and diplomatic skill, but through immense, often invisible, human cost, through the psychological impact of overwhelming power that permeated every aspect of life, and through the slow, steady erosion of individual autonomy in favor of a grand, centralized, and utterly ruthless vision. You sleep not entirely peacefully, nestled in your rough blankets. knowing that the peace you experience is merely the quiet hum of a perfectly oiled, immensely powerful war machine, always capable of turning its attention to your small corner of the world if its dictates are not met. The dreams of Cyrus, the first king of kings, reshape your reality, leaving you with a profound, almost primal awareness of your small, insignificant place within his colossal, terrifying shadow. This is the blood price of empire, paid by countless individuals like you, often in quiet suffering and unspoken fear, far from the grand narratives of conquest. And you know, deep down, that this is only the beginning of what it truly means to live under the shadow of the King of Kings. Now, shift your perspective. That initial shiver of awe and fear you felt under Cyrus's burgeoning empire, that was just the beginning. As the empire stabilized and grew under Darius the Great, his ambition wasn't just about conquest, but about control. You are no longer just a humble villager. You are now perhaps a low-level official in a regional town, a minor merchant, or even a local noble in a newly integrated province far from the heartland of Persis. You have a little more to lose, and therefore a little more to fear. You live in a world where the King of Kings is not just a distant or inspiring figure, but an omnipresent, unseen force. A watchful entity whose gaze, it is said, can pierce through stone walls and across vast deserts. You are learning the true meaning of the king's eyes and ears. You start your day, not with the gentle tap of a smartphone alarm, but with the clatter of a wooden shutter against sun-baked mud brick, the smell of wood smoke and stale bread hanging in the morning air. You go about your business, whether it's managing a granary, haggling in the bustling bazaar, or overseeing your small estate. But every interaction is subtly different from your modern-day ease. Every conversation has a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of caution running beneath it. You learn to weigh your words, to modulate your tone, to consider not just who you are speaking to, but who might be listening. Because in Darius's Persia, the walls truly do have ears, and the very air carries whispers back to Susa, to Persepolis, to a king you will never see. You've heard the stories, of course. Everyone has. Tales of men disappearing in the night, of local officials who spoke too freely and never returned to their homes. You hear of satraps, powerful governors of vast provinces, who were suddenly, inexplicably, recalled to the capital and replaced, their families often following them into swift obscurity or worse. The official explanation is always some bureaucratic nicety, some administrative reshuffle, perhaps a claim of illness, but the underlying truth, the chilling secret, is known to all who possess an ounce of sense. They displeased the king, or, more accurately, the king heard they displeased him, and the king heard because someone told him. Someone was always watching, always listening, and waiting for a slip. You see they pass through your town, ordinary-looking men and women, a merchant with a camel train laden with spices and textiles, a wandering minstrel with a lute and 1,000 tales, a solitary priest on a pilgrimage, a humble artisan seeking new markets. They seem unremarkable, blending into the tapestry of everyday life. Yet there's something in their eyes, a glint of intelligence, a stillness in their demeanor, a peculiar attentiveness that sets them apart. You learn to recognize them, though you would never, ever openly acknowledge your suspicion to anyone. These are the king's eyes. They travel the length and breadth of the empire, ostensibly on their own business, but always with one true, unspoken purpose: to observe, to report, to ferret out dissent, corruption, or disloyalty among the satraps, the generals, the local elites, and even the common folk like yourself. They are everywhere and nowhere, like the desert wind, unseen but ever present. You feel this surveillance not as an overt, immediate threat, but as a subtle, pervasive pressure. It's like the weight of the air before a storm, a constant, low-level anxiety that hums beneath the surface of your daily life. When you meet with your peers, your conversation often stays on safe, neutral topics: the weather, the latest harvest yields, the cost of grain, the mundane gossip about a faraway royal marriage. Political discussions are hushed, confined to the deepest privacy of your home, behind locked doors, with heavy tapestries drawn to muffle sound, and even then you glance over your shoulder. You lower your voice to a bare whisper. You remember the old proverb, repeated by your elders in dire tones: trust no one with secrets you wouldn't tell your king. And you understand its chilling, deadly implications. Consider the complexity of this network. No internet, no telephones, no instant messaging. Yet, information flowed with remarkable speed and accuracy. Couriers, known as Angarayun, rode horses at breakneck speed along the royal road, changing mounts at relays every few miles, carrying wax-sealed tablets or spoken messages encoded in the minds of trusted agents. You sometimes see them, a blur of dust and frantic energy, arriving and departing like specters, their faces grim with the importance of their task, their bodies covered in sweat and grime. You know they carry the king's word, and the king's word, in turn, is shaped by what they carry back. This ancient network of communication was far more efficient and terrifying than anything you could conceive of in your disconnected, leisurely modern life. It was a lifeline of absolute control, constantly feeding the central nervous system of the empire, allowing it to react with astonishing speed. You learn that even among your friends, among your own family, there is a possibility of betrayal. Not necessarily malicious betrayal, but born of fear, of ambition, or of self-preservation. A careless word, overheard by a child who repeats it innocently to an adult eager for favor, could be construed as disloyalty. A perceived slight against the king's decree, reported by a zealous subordinate eager for advancement, could lead to your swift and utter ruin. The system doesn't rely on grand conspiracies, on uncovering deep plots. It thrives on mundane observations, on the small slips, on the natural human inclination to protect oneself by shifting blame or highlighting the faults of others. The ears of the king are perhaps even more insidious than the eyes. These are the informants, the local agents, often respected members of the community, a revered elder, the quiet scribe in the market, the priest in the local temple, even your own neighbor who have been turned or coerced, or who believe so fervently in the king's absolute power that they see it as their divine duty to report. You can never be sure who they are. This uncertainty breeds a subtle but profound distrust among the populace, eroding the bonds of community. You learn to keep your own counsel, to appear outwardly zealous in your loyalty, to participate enthusiastically in royal decrees and festivals, to make lavish offerings in the king's name. The safest course is always to be seen as an exemplary subject, to blend in, to offer no reason for suspicion, no target for the unseen ears. This omnipresent surveillance isn't designed to catch every petty crime, though it does so inadvertently. It's designed for one paramount purpose: to prevent rebellion, to maintain absolute central authority, and to keep the satraps, those powerful provincial governors, firmly in line. a satrap, miles away from the capital, ruling a vast territory. Could easily become a king in his own right, building his own power base, raising his own armies. But the king's eyes and ears ensure that any such ambition, any deviation from strict obedience, is swiftly brought to light. You hear of a satrap who began to mint his own coins. Subtle deviations from the royal standard, a small gesture of independence. Within weeks, a royal commission arrived. His administration was swiftly dismantled, and he himself was led away in chains, often to a gruesome fate. No trial, no public outcry, just the silent, efficient, terrifying application of royal justice. You feel the chilling realization that your life, your very existence, is ultimately disposable in the grand scheme of the empire. The king's peace, the stability that allows you to farm, to trade, to live a relatively ordered life, is maintained by this system of absolute control, and that control demands absolute conformity. The freedom of thought, the freedom of speech, the ability to openly criticize leaders that you take for granted in your modern world, simply does not exist here. Any deviation from the officially sanctioned narrative, any murmur of discontent, however minor, could be interpreted as treason, and the consequences are immediate and deadly. Contrast this with your digital footprint today. You might feel a fleeting discomfort about your data being collected, about algorithms tracking your preferences, about government surveillance. But you still have the luxury of anonymity in certain aspects, the freedom to express dissenting opinions online, to criticize leaders, to debate. Here, in Darius's Persia, there is no such luxury. Every interaction, every public statement, every gesture of loyalty or lack thereof is potentially scrutinized. The data collection is organic, human, and devastatingly effective because it feeds on human fear and ambition. The king's eyes and ears are not just individuals. They are a profound psychological weapon. The knowledge that they exist, that they could be anywhere, is enough to enforce compliance. It makes you self-censor to internalize the fear, to become your own jailer of thought. You are aware that even your dreams, if spoken aloud, could be misinterpreted as sedition. You learn to smile when appropriate, to nod agreement, to keep your true feelings buried deep within, a secret known only to yourself, a heavy burden on your soul. And what about your own role? You, yourself, might be tempted, at some point, to become an eye or an ear for personal gain, for advancement, or simply for survival. To report a rival, to highlight the perceived disloyalty of a superior, to protect your own family by pointing fingers elsewhere. The system fosters this kind of internal competition and fear, ensuring that the king always has a ready supply of willing informants. You might find yourself in a situation where reporting a perceived slight could save your own family from suspicion, from ruin, from death. The moral compromises are constant, gnawing at your conscience, yet dictated by the stark reality of survival. So, as you draw your blanket tighter tonight, think of this pervasive, unseen web of control. Think of the psychological toll it must have taken on entire populations, living under the constant, silent gaze of an absolute monarch. The secrets of ancient Persian kings are not just about their grand designs, but about the chillingly effective methods they employed to maintain them. Darius didn't just build an empire of stone and gold. He built an empire of silence, of watchful eyes, and of carefully controlled thoughts. And you, walking through that ancient world, would have felt its oppressive weight every single day, a stark reminder that even in the vastness of an empire, there was no true escape from the king's omnipresent gaze. The comfort of your modern privacy, your freedom to speak, to think, to dissent, feels impossibly distant. A luxury that would have been utterly alien and lethally dangerous. In the world you've just inhabited, you may picture the royal harem in ancient Persia as a place of exotic beauty, soft silks and sensual delights, a kind of opulent pleasure garden designed solely for the king's enjoyment. You might imagine rows of passive, beautiful women draped in jewels, waiting languidly for the king's summons, their only role to please. Cast that image aside, for it is yet another romanticized lie, a dangerous fantasy. Tonight, you are not merely observing from afar. You are stepping inside those hushed, heavily guarded walls, feeling the heavy perfumed air of intrigue, ambition, and barely suppressed violence that truly permeated the royal harem. This is not a place of simple pleasure. It is a gilded cage of power, a political battlefield, and often a prelude to poison. You are a young woman, perhaps born into a noble family, or even one of the myriad lesser wives or concubines, brought to the court for your beauty, your lineage, or as a diplomatic offering to solidify an alliance. You enter the immense royal complex, a place of dizzying grandeur that makes your modern sensibilities real, a stark contrast to the small, humble life you've known. The air is heavy with the intoxicating scent of expensive incense, exotic perfumes like frankincense and myrrh, the lingering aroma of elaborate meals, but beneath it all there is a tension, a stillness that is deeply unsettling, like the calm before a storm. You leave behind the limited freedoms of your former life, however meager, for a life of unparalleled luxury, yes, but also of absolute confinement and relentless, often deadly, competition. Your entire existence is now utterly defined by your proximity to the king, and your ability to bear him sons. The harem is not a single room, but an enormous, self-contained city within the palace complex, often sprawling with its own lush gardens, intricate fountains, bustling kitchens, opulent bathhouses, and thousands of inhabitants. You are one among hundreds, perhaps thousands, of women, the official queen, the king's primary wives, countless secondary wives, concubines, royal children, legions of eunuchs, handmaidens, teachers, and servants. You quickly learn that hierarchy here is everything. The official queen, the mother of the designated heir, wields immense, often terrifying, power. She might be the king's sister, his cousin, or a foreign princess, but her position is sacrosanct, her influence profound, stretching far beyond the harem walls. You will learn to recognize the subtle cues of power, the quality of a woman's silks, the number of her personal attendants, the deference shown to her by the eunuchs who guard this gilded prison, the way other women instinctively lower their eyes in her presence. Your daily life, far from being one of endless leisure or sensual indulgence, is a constant, grinding competition. Every woman here is a potential mother of a future king, a potential queen, or a tool in some larger, often brutal, political game. You are constantly vying for the king's attention, for a fleeting moment of his favor, for a night in his bedchamber. This isn't about love in the modern sense. It's about strategic alliances, about securing your own future and that of any potential children, about gaining a position that prevents your own destruction. You learn the intricate dance of court politics, the art of subtle flattery, the power of a well-placed word whispered at the right moment, the fatal danger of a misstep, a perceived insult, or an unwitting slight. Your beauty might open a door, but your intelligence, cunning, and ruthlessness are what will keep you alive and, perhaps, elevate you. You watch the queen. She holds an almost absolute sway over the internal affairs of the harem, and often, through her influence with the king, over the empire itself. She has her own vast network of spies and informants within the harem walls, mirroring the king's network outside. Every whispered conversation, every private meeting, every secret ailment, every perceived act of disloyalty can be reported back to her, and her retribution can be swift and devastating. You learn to keep your own counsel, to trust no one entirely, for even your closest handmaiden might be reporting to a higher power, coerced or enticed by promises of favor. Your privacy, the very concept of a personal, internal world, is constantly under siege. Non-existent, consider the youth. These are not merely mute, passive guards. They are highly intelligent, often highly educated men, castrated in childhood, who hold immense power and influence within the harem and often in the court itself. They are the king's personal confidants, his administrators, the eyes and ears of the queen, the guardians of the royal children. They are men who are simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, their bodies stripped of masculinity, yet their minds sharp and their positions unassailable by the dynastic ambitions that consume others. They can be fiercely loyal or utterly corrupt. You learn to respect them, to fear them, and to cultivate their favor, for they can open doors or close them with a single word to the king or queen. They control access, information, and often the very fate of the women under their charge, holding untold power over lives and deaths. The biggest prize, the ultimate goal for many women, is to bear the king a son. A son secures your position, elevates your status, and gives you a chance at real influence, a modicum of security. If you bear a son, you become a mother to a potential heir, and suddenly you have power. But this power comes with its own unique, terrifying perils. The struggle for succession begins in the womb. Mothers of male children become targets, their sons rivals to the queen's own progeny. Infanticide, though rarely spoken of openly, is a dark shadow that hangs over the harem. You might hear whispers of a child who died mysteriously in the night, a sudden illness that swept through the nursery, a fragile life extinguished before it could truly begin. You learn to protect your children with ferocious, primal intensity, to surround them with trusted guards, to taste their food before they eat it, to never let them out of your sight. Your modern world's protective instincts for children feel impossibly naive here. In the harem, a child's birth can be a death sentence, or a ticket to immense, perilous power. You witness the rituals, the elaborate ceremonies, the constant pageantry of court life, the processions of adorned women, the feasts. But beneath the glittering surface, you perceive the chilling undercurrent of ambition, the gnawing fear of falling from favor. A beautiful new concubine arrives, and you see the subtle shift in the king's gaze, the quiet despair in the eyes of an older favorite who knows her time is ending. You understand that your beauty is fleeting, your youth a perishable commodity in this brutal market. You must cultivate other forms of power, wit, loyalty, strategic alliances with powerful court factions, or simply the ability to remain invisible, yet indispensable, a quiet fixture that poses no threat. Imagine the suffocating boredom, too, the endless hours within those walls, the lack of true freedom, the constant vigilance that saps your energy. You cannot leave the harem without the king's express permission, and even then, only with a heavy escort of eunuchs. Your world shrinks to the confines of this gilded prison. You find solace in gossip, in intricate embroidery, in carefully orchestrated rivalries, in the small acts of defiance or alliance that make up your existence. You crave news from the outside world, from the campaigns, from the bustling cities. But such news is filtered, censored, controlled, told through the lens of those who wish to manipulate you. You are isolated, utterly dependent, and yet paradoxically at the very heart of the empire's power. The ultimate weapon, besides political maneuvering, is often poison. In a world where overt violence against a rival might draw too much attention, a slow-acting illness, a sudden fever, a fatal potion administered discreetly in a dish of food or a cup of wine, becomes the preferred, silent method of eliminating competition. You hear the hushed rumors of a woman who offended the queen, found dead in her bed the next morning, her death attributed to natural causes or a sudden malaise, though everyone knows better. You learn to be meticulous about your food, your drinks, your personal attendance. You develop a keen, almost animalistic sense of observation, watching for any unusual behavior, any subtle change in routine, any gesture that seems out of place. This is not the clean, sterile world of your modern existence. This is a place where betrayal can come in a sweet drink or a perfumed garment, an insidious terror that permeates every meal. The king himself, while the ultimate source of power, is also a prisoner of his own creation. He must navigate this complex web of loyalties and betrayals, constantly wary of the women around him who wield influence through their sons, their families, and their own cunning. He might truly love some of them, but he can never fully trust them. Every meal, every cup of wine, could be his last if an ambitious wife or concubine, perhaps in alliance with a disgruntled courtier or a powerful eunuch, sought to elevate her son to the throne. The very intimacy of the harem, designed for pleasure and progeny, becomes a breeding ground for ultimate danger, a place where his most private moments are also his most vulnerable dot. So, as you settle deeper into your blankets tonight, consider the women of the ancient Persian harem, not as passive objects of desire, but as fierce, intelligent, and often desperate players in a deadly game of power. Their secrets are those of survival, of ambition, of the chilling strategies employed to secure their lineage and their influence within a system designed to control every aspect of their lives, and to crush any who failed. Your modern world, with its concepts of individual rights and personal autonomy, seems a distant, impossible dream compared to the intricate, dangerous web of life you've just experienced within those high, unyielding walls. The whispers of ambition, the scent of fear, and the ever-present shadow of poison. These were the true luxuries and the true terrors of the royal harem. You, in your modern life, take travel for granted. A car, a train, an airplane. You cover vast distances in hours. In comfort, with a plethora of amenities, climate control, and entertainment at your fingertips. You barely consider the engineering, the immense labor, or the sheer political will required to connect distant lands and cultures. Tonight, you are stripped of these comforts. You are walking, riding, or perhaps even being driven along the most ambitious infrastructure project of the ancient world, the Persian Royal Road, and you are about to discover that this marvel of engineering, this vital artery of empire, was as much a testament to relentless control and profound cruelty as it was to efficiency and innovation. Imagine you are a courier, a royal messenger tasked with delivering vital dispatches from Susa, the king's winter capital, all the way to Sardis, the far-flung capital of Lydia, a journey of over 2,500 kilometers. You are not a solitary figure wandering the desert, hoping for a ride. You are a vital, expendable part of a meticulously organized, state-controlled system. Your journey begins at dawn, not with a check of your GPS or a quick coffee, but with a final adjustment of your saddle, a nervous glance at the rising sun, and a deep breath of the dusty, cool morning air. You carry a sealed tablet, perhaps a scroll of papyrus, containing the king's commands, declarations, or intelligence reports. Your life, and the lives of many others, depend on its swift and secure delivery. Failure is not an option. It means death. The road itself is not the smoothly paved asphalt you know. It's a track, often wide enough for multiple carts to pass abreast, sometimes paved with rough-hewn stone in marshy or mountainous areas, but largely compacted earth, hardened by sun and countless footsteps. It is surprisingly well maintained, a testament to endless, repetitive human labor. As you set off, the rhythmic thud of your horse's hooves on the dry ground is your only constant companion, aside from the wind that whips at your cloak, carrying dust and the scent of distant animal herds. You pass through sparsely populated lands, the occasional mud-brick village clinging to an oasis, then vast, empty stretches where the horizon seems to stretch into eternity. The air is thick with dust kicked up by preceding travelers, carrying the faint, earthy scent of animal dung, dried herbs, and sweat. Every few roughly 25 to 30 kilometers, you encounter a caravan, a way station, much like a modern rest stop, but far more basic, stark, and utterly vital. These are fortified outposts, stockaded and guarded by grizzled soldiers, offering rudimentary shelter, fresh water drawn from a deep well, and most importantly, fresh horses. You dismount, your muscles screaming in protest, your body stiff and aching from hours in the saddle. A new horse, already saddled and eager, its eyes bright with fresh energy, is waiting. You toss your precious saddlebag and documents to a waiting attendant, grab a quick drink of water, perhaps a handful of dried dates or a piece of hardtack if you're lucky, and you are off again, pushing the limits of both man and beast, never truly resting. This rapid exchange, this relentless, almost inhuman pace, is what makes the Royal Road legendary. The Greek historian Herodotus famously wrote, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." And you, pushing yourself to exhaustion, your vision blurring, feel the unyielding truth of those words in your very bones, but you also see and feel the profound cruelty that underpins this efficiency. Who built this road? Not skilled engineers with heavy machinery, not well-paid contractors. No, it was built by countless laborers, many of them conscripts, prisoners of war, or slaves, driven by the crack of the whip and the constant threat of starvation. You occasionally see their graves along the road, simple cairns of stone, silent, anonymous testaments to the back-breaking toil. The exposure to the relentless elements, the diseases that swept through the labor camps. You pass groups of chained individuals, sometimes moving in your direction, sometimes being led away to work on a new stretch of the road, their faces etched with despair, their eyes vacant. This grand achievement, this symbol of imperial power and connectivity, is literally paved with human suffering, each stone a monument to forgotten lives. The road is not just for messengers. You encounter a constant stream of other travelers, merchants, their laden carts creaking under the weight of precious goods, silks, spices, metals, grain, exotic fruits moving between the far-flung corners of the empire. Their faces tired but hopeful. You see military detachments, armored soldiers marching in grim formation, their spears glinting ominously in the sun, their disciplined presence a stark, ever-present reminder of the king's omnipresent power. You also see the less fortunate, refugees, beggars, families displaced by war or famine, clinging to the edges of the road, hoping for scraps, for charity, for a chance at survival. The road is a microcosm of the empire itself, a dynamic, bustling tapestry of wealth, power and destitution, all moving under the watchful, indifferent eye of the king. Consider the dangers. No GPS, no emergency services, no roadside assistance. Bandits lurk in desolate stretches, hidden by rocky outcrops or dense thickets, preying on isolated travelers or vulnerable merchant convoys. Wild animals, desperate for food, might emerge from the wilderness, a sudden shadow, a growl in the night. The weather can turn savage with terrifying speed, with sudden sandstorms engulfing you in a choking, blinding maelstrom of grit, or torrential rains turning the compacted earth into treacherous, impassable mud, threatening to sweep you and your horse away. You carry a small knife, perhaps a short sword, but your primary defense is your speed and the implicit protection of carrying the king's message. You rely on the fortresses at the way stations, on the occasional patrolling guard, and on sheer dumb luck. You are utterly alone for vast stretches, separated from any kind of organized help by hours or even days of hard riding. Your modern sense of security is stripped away, leaving you raw, exposed, and vulnerable to every whim of nature and man. The royal road isn't just about moving people and goods. It's about moving information and control with unprecedented efficiency. For the king, it means his commands can reach the most distant satrap within days or weeks, rather than months, ensuring swift enforcement. It means intelligence about rebellions brewing, about crop failures impacting tax revenues, about foreign incursions, can reach him swiftly, allowing for timely counteraction. It allows him to dispatch troops with surprising speed, to levy taxes with precision, to consolidate his absolute authority over an empire so vast it dwarfs any other in the ancient world. You are a small, vital, human cog in this immense, grinding system of control, a living conduit for the king's undeniable will. You arrive at a way station, utterly exhausted, your body protesting every movement, every breath. The overseer, a grizzled veteran with eyes that have seen too much, greets you with a curt nod, his gaze assessing your condition, and more importantly, the condition of your precious message. He doesn't care about your personal comfort. He cares only about the king's business, about the unbroken chain of communication. You hand over your documents, receive fresh ones for the next leg, and quickly mount a new horse. There is no time for extended rest, no luxury of a soft bed. You sleep in snatches, perhaps leaning against a wall in the common room of a way station, disturbed by the sounds of restless animals, snoring travelers, and the constant coming and going. Your dreams are filled with the endless stretch of the road, the rhythmic pounding hooves, the choking dust. The contrast with your current life is stark, almost absurd. Imagine being cut off from instant communication, from paved roads, from the myriad conveniences that make travel almost effortless. Here, every single mile is a profound battle against the elements, against exhaustion, against the unknown dangers lurking just beyond the horizon. Your very existence on the royal road is a testament to the king's power. His power to command such an immense undertaking, and his absolute power to command you, his humble courier, to risk your life day after day for the good of his colossal empire. You reflect on the true secret of the royal road. It's not just a physical path. It's a psychological one. It connects, but it allows the king to project his will, his laws, his justice, or his cruelty to the farthest reaches of his domain. It shrinks the vastness of the empire, making it feel smaller, more manageable, and more terrifyingly controlled. When a distant province rebels, troops can be swiftly dispatched. When a tax needs to be collected, a royal decree can arrive without delay. The road is a constant, tangible reminder to every subject, every satrap, every foreign power, that no matter how far they are never truly beyond the king's reach, never truly beyond his immediate, crushing authority as you finally reach your destination. Perhaps the bustling satrapal capital of Sardis, you feel a profound, aching weariness, but also a strange, quiet sense of accomplishment. You have been a living, breathing cog in the machinery of one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. You have seen, smelled, and felt the arteries of control and cruelty that bound this vast realm together. And as you collapse onto a simple cot, the rhythmic pounding of hooves still echoing in your ears, you understand that your modern world's freedom of movement, its ease of communication, its basic infrastructure, are luxuries built upon millennia of such arduous, often brutal, human effort. The royal road was a secret weapon, not just of logistics, but of absolute, terrifying control over the lives of millions. You have heard of Persepolis, undoubtedly, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Its name conjures images of majestic ruins, soaring columns, and magnificent bas-reliefs. You might envision a city of unparalleled beauty, a testament to artistic genius and imperial wealth, a wonder of the ancient world. But tonight, you are not a modern tourist admiring ancient stones, clicking pictures with your phone. You are a laborer, a skilled craftsman, or perhaps even a prisoner of war, forcibly brought to this desolate plain at the foot of the Ki Ramet, the mountain of mercy. In the early 5th century BC, you are about to discover that Persepolis, this symbol of unparalleled power and grandeur, was a city built not just on ambition and artistry, but on sweat, whispers, and the uncounted blood of its diverse builders. Imagine waking before dawn, not in your soft bed, but on a rough straw mat in a crowded, dusty barracks, the air thick with the pungent scent of unwashed bodies, stale bread, and the raw odor of human exertion. The first rays of the sun paint the surrounding mountains in stark, brutal relief, illuminating the nascent, skeletal forms of what will become one of the greatest cities ever conceived. You are a part of a workforce of tens of thousands, brought from every corner of the vast empire: Egyptians, Babylonians, Medes, Syrians, Greeks, Scythians, Elamites, and, of course, Persians. Your languages are a cacophony, a bewildering mix of tongues. Your customs bewilderingly varied, but your purpose is singular: to build a city worthy of the King of Kings, to raise a monument to his eternal glory. You join the long, shuffling line towards the ration lines, where overseers, often Persian or Median, their faces stern and impassive, distribute meager portions of bread, sometimes a watery beer, and occasionally, if you are lucky, dried fish or dates. This isn't slavery in the brutal, whiplashing sense for everyone. Some are skilled artisans paid with silver, their wages carefully recorded. But many are conscripted labor, effectively pressed into service, their families left behind in distant lands. And beneath the surface, for many, the conditions are indistinguishable from slavery. You feel the constant hunger pangs, the weariness that never truly leaves your bones, a deep ache in your muscles that pervades your entire existence. Your modern abundance of food, your comfortable living, your freedom of choice feels like an alien fantasy here, an impossible dream. Your work begins at sunrise and ends at sunset, a relentless cycle dictated by the movement of the sun across the vast Persian sky. If you are a stonemason, you wield crude chisels and heavy hammers, shaping immense blocks of dark grey limestone quarried from the very mountain that looms majestically over the site. The dust, gritty and omnipresent, gets into your eyes, your lungs, coating your skin, making your throat raw. Your muscles ache, perpetually strained, your hands are calloused and cracked, often bleeding from nicks and scrapes. The sheer physical exertion is staggering, far beyond anything you've ever imagined enduring for more than a few hours. You push and pull on ropes woven from hemp, hauling stones weighing many tons, using only brute force, simple levers, and the ingenious, yet rudimentary, engineering knowledge of the age. The air is filled with the groans of men, the creak of ropes, the grinding of stone if you are a sculptor. You spend your days bent over intricate designs, carving the detailed bas-reliefs that will adorn the ceremonial staircases and the grand apodictics, depicting tribute bearers from every nation of the empire, endlessly marching towards the king. You are an artist, yes, but also a cog in a machine, expected to execute the precise, politically charged vision of the royal architects and propagandists. You work with incredible precision, your eyes straining in the flickering light of oil lamps inside the dark halls, knowing that any mistake, any imperfection in the king's image could lead to severe punishment, perhaps even the loss of a hand. Your back screams in protest, your fingers become numb with the repetitive strain. The silence of intense concentration is broken only by the rhythmic tap-tap of hammer on chisel, a constant melody of creation and coercion. You feel the constant, heavy presence of the overseers. They stand on elevated platforms, their sharp eyes scanning the vast construction site, looking for any sign of slackening, any defiance. The crack of a whip, though perhaps not as pervasive or theatrical as Hollywood suggests, is still a very real, very present threat, its sound echoing across the plain. You see men punished for minor infractions, a missed day of work, a perceived insolence, a dropped tool, a moment of rest too long. The punishments are swift and brutal: public flogging, forced extra labor without rations, reduction of meager food supplies. Your modern sensibilities, recoiling at such casual, everyday cruelty, find no purchase here. Life is cheap, labor is cheaper, and the king's glory is paramount. Persepolis is not just a city, it's a living, breathing monument to imperial ideology, a colossal stone sermon. Every column, every frieze, every soaring gate is meticulously designed to convey a single, undeniable message: the unchallengeable power and divine right of the King of Kings, his benevolent yet absolute dominion over all peoples. You, the laborer, the craftsman, are building this message with your own calloused hands, carving the images of submission. The endless procession of diverse peoples bringing their tribute to the Persian monarch. You understand, perhaps more viscerally than any pampered courtier, that this city isn't merely a place. It's a colossal piece of propaganda, designed to awe, to impress, and ultimately, to intimidate all who behold it, both foreign dignitaries and subject peoples alike. The working conditions are harsh, the enforcement brutal, but there is also a remarkable, almost chilling, organization to the chaos. Clay tablets, known as the Persepolis fortification tablets and treasury tablets, meticulously record every aspect of the project: rations distributed, wages paid or withheld, sick leave granted or denied, even births and deaths. Even pregnant women and new mothers receive extra rations. A testament to a pragmatic, if not benevolent, imperial administration that understood the cold, hard economic need to maintain its workforce, to ensure the next generation of laborers. This is not pure, uncontrolled chaos. It is a meticulously managed system of human resource extraction, designed for maximum output, for maximum glory. You are a recorded entity, your very existence tracked by the king's scribes, your labor quantifiable. You witness the rare, awe-inspiring arrival of the king, Xerxes or Darius, for a brief inspection, a ceremonial visit. The entire vast site falls silent, all work ceasing instantly. You bow low, your face in the dust, as the glittering procession passes, the air thick with royal perfume and the smell of fear. You catch a fleeting glimpse of the king, adorned in gold and purple, surrounded by his silent, terrifying immortals, a living god on earth. In that moment, the scale of his power, the sheer audacity of this project, hits you with overwhelming, almost spiritual force. This is not just a king. This is the King of Kings, and you are building his eternal legacy with your own pain. You feel the spiritual weight of the place. The Achaemenid kings believed their authority was granted by Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of Zoroastrianism. Persepolis is a sacred site, not just a palace. The ceremonies held here are imbued with profound religious significance, solidifying the king's role as the divinely appointed ruler of the known world. You, the common laborer, might not understand the intricacies of royal theology, but you understand reverence, and you feel the immense spiritual power emanating from this sacred mountain, from the very stones you are shaping, from the sheer, unyielding will that brought this wonder into being. Consider the years it took, the generations of workers. You might start as a young man, barely capable of lifting a heavy stone, and grow old on this site, your body bent, your eyes clouded by dust, your spirit perhaps broken, seeing only a fraction of the grand vision completed. You might pass on your skills, your tools, and your weary resignation to your son, who will continue the work after you, generation after generation. Persepolis is a testament to the cumulative labor of countless anonymous individuals, their lives poured into the monumental stones. Your modern comforts, your quick fixes, your short-term projects, your instant gratification, seem flimsy and fleeting compared to the sheer, enduring will embodied in every carved column, every soaring wall, every single stone of Persepolis. The true secret of Persepolis is not just its architectural splendor, not just its artistic genius, but the chilling story of its creation. It stands as a monument to absolute, centralized power, capable of marshalling immense human resources from across a vast and diverse empire. It tells a story of meticulous organization blended with brutal enforcement, of artistic genius achieved through relentless, often cruel, labor, through unimaginable suffering. As you lie down tonight, in the peace and quiet of your own home, recall the dust, the sweat, the ache in your muscles, and the whispers of 1,000 languages echoing around you on that ancient sun-baked plain. Persepolis is beautiful, yes, but that beauty was bought with a price you, in your modern life, can scarcely comprehend. The very lives and liberties of tens of thousands, sacrificed at the altar of imperial ambition, for a glory they would never share in your modern world. You likely take for granted a system of laws, courts, and at least a theoretical promise of due process. You have rights, appeals, and a framework designed, however imperfectly, to ensure some semblance of fairness, to protect the innocent. Tonight, you are entering a world where such concepts are luxuries, alien and dangerous, utterly meaningless. You are a subject of the King of Kings, and you are about to witness, or perhaps even experience, the chilling, absolute nature of Persian justice. This is not about abstract legal principles. It is about the raw, unquestionable power of the king, manifested through methods that will make your skin crawl and your stomach clench. Imagine you are a small landowner, perhaps a merchant accused of theft, or even a local official suspected of corruption in a provincial town. The accusation, whether true or false, whether whispered by a jealous rival or shouted by an angry mob, is enough to plunge your life into immediate, terrifying uncertainty. There are no warrants, no formal arrests in the modern sense, no lawyers to defend you. You are simply seized, often in the dead of night, by royal guards, their faces grim, their movements efficient, their bronze armor gleaming ominously. The soft glow of your bedside lamp, the comfort of your warm bed, your sense of security, are instantly replaced by the rough hands of soldiers, the cold, damp stone of a dungeon cell, and the suffocating silence of absolute, unquestionable power. Your journey to justice, if you can call it that, begins not with a lawyer, but with an interrogation, often in darkness, or under the relentless glare of torches. You are brought before a local magistrate, or perhaps even a satrap. But everyone knows the ultimate authority, the final arbiter, rests with the king. You feel the fear constricting your throat, the knot of dread in your stomach, a cold hand squeezing your heart. The room is often sparse, save for a table, some scribes with their styluses, and clay tablets to record your confessions, and perhaps the visible implements of persuasion. The king's law is harsh, swift, and designed to extract confession and compliance, not necessarily to discover objective truth or to protect the accused. You hear the accounts, the chilling rumors that spread like wildfire, of what happens to those who displease the king, or those found guilty of treason or grave offenses. The method of execution known as the boat or scaphism is whispered in hushed, terrified tones. A condemned individual is placed between two hollowed-out tree trunks, with only their head, hands, and feet protruding. They are force-fed milk and honey, which attracts insects, and their exposed parts are smeared with the same, leading to a slow, agonizing death from dysentery, insect bites, and gangrene. You shiver, your modern mind recoiling at such deliberate, prolonged, horrific cruelty, a calculated torment that aims to prolong suffering to the absolute limit of human endurance. This isn't just about ending a life. It's about making a terrifying, unforgettable example. Then there is impalement, a common, brutally effective method for rebels, traitors, or particularly egregious criminals. You might see the gruesome sight yourself, a grim, silent row of wooden stakes standing outside a city gate, each bearing a writhing, dying body, a stark warning against defiance. The screams, the pleas for mercy that echo across the marketplace, the slow, agonizing descent into silence. These become a visceral, unforgettable lesson in the absolute cost of defiance against the king. Your modern justice system, with its debates on humane execution, its legal safeguards, its relative transparency, feels like a childish, fragile fantasy in the face of such raw, public terror. Torture, of course, is a regular, accepted tool of inquiry, not a last resort. Not for you, the sterile clinical interrogation rooms of your imagined modern spy thrillers. Here it is blunt, visceral, agonizingly painful, and designed to break the body and the will of the accused. Strips of rawhide for flagellation, hot irons applied to flesh, the rack to dislocate limbs, starvation, thirst. These are not just tools of fiction, but grim, everyday realities. You hear the screams from other cells, the muffled thuds of blows, the gurgling cries, and you know, with a sickening certainty, that your own resilience might soon be tested to its absolute breaking point. The very idea of pleading the fifth, of remaining silent, of claiming innocence without proof, is an impossible luxury, a concept that simply does not exist. Confession, whether true or coerced, is often the primary, overriding goal. The king's justice is not uniform across the empire. While certain core laws and royal decrees apply universally, satraps wield immense power within their vast provinces, often administering justice with a heavy hand, reflecting their own local customs and the king's overall directives. This lack of uniformity means your fate could depend entirely on where you are, and which local governor holds sway, or how he interprets the king's will. A crime that might warrant a moderate fine in one region could mean agonizing death in another. The arbitrary, unpredictable nature of this power is deeply unsettling. A constant source of anxiety, a terrifying lottery of fate. You understand that the king is considered divine, or at least divinely appointed, his authority directly bestowed by Ahura Mazda. His word is law. His pronouncements unchanged. There is no appeal above him, no higher court to petition. His decisions are final, absolute, and beyond question. When the king passes judgment, it is not merely a legal ruling. It is an act of divine will, an expression of cosmic order. This intertwines legal power with religious authority, making defiance not just a crime against the state, but blasphemy against the gods, an affront to the divine order itself. Your modern separation of church and state, of legal and religious authority, is a concept utterly foreign and meaningless in this world. Public spectacle is often a key, deliberate component of justice. Executions are not hidden away. They are often performed in public, in central squares or outside city gates, designed to instill profound fear and absolute obedience in the populace. You are expected to witness these displays, to internalize the message, defy the king, question his authority, or commit a grave crime, and this could be your fate. The smell of fresh blood, the cries of the condemned, the silent, watchful, terrified crowds. These sights and sounds are etched into your memory, a constant, visceral reminder of the fragility of your own existence. But it's not all brutal execution. The king can also show mercy. You hear stories of individuals who were condemned only to be pardoned at the last minute by a royal decree, perhaps due to the intercession of a powerful noble, a favored queen, or a well-placed eunuch. This capricious nature of justice, where life and death hang on the king's whim, on his mood, on his personal favor, makes the system even more terrifying. There is no clear line, no predictable outcome, no guarantee of consistency. You are utterly at the mercy of a single individual, whose moods and motivations are unknowable, inscrutable, and absolute. Consider the contrast with your cozy, safe, modern home. You worry about parking tickets, perhaps, or a minor legal dispute that might cost you money or inconvenience. Here, the consequences of even a perceived transgression are existential. Your entire family could be implicated, your property confiscated, your name erased from history, your very memory blotted out. The fear of legal repercussions is not an abstract concept. It is a palpable, ever-present threat to your very survival and the survival of those you love. The secrets of ancient Persian justice are not merely about its harshness, but about its profound psychological impact, its calculated terror. It was a system designed to maintain absolute order, not through consent or popular legitimacy, but through fear, through public spectacle, and through the unchallengeable power of a divinely sanctioned monarch. It was a system that blurred the lines between law, religion, and personal vendetta, where the king's will was the ultimate arbiter of right and wrong, of life and death. As you close your eyes tonight, savor the security of your modern legal system, however imperfect. Remember the cold dread of the dungeon, the agonizing slowness of the boat, the terror of public impact, and the chilling realization that in the world of the King of Kings, your very life was but a fleeting spark, entirely at the mercy of a single or an utterly unpredictable decree. You've likely heard the name, the Immortals. It conjures images of elite warriors, perhaps even superhuman fighters, moving in perfect unison, their numbers seemingly endless. In your modern understanding of warfare, you might think of special forces, highly trained professionals with advanced gear. Cast aside those romanticized notions, those cinematic visions. Tonight, you are not just hearing about them. You are encountering them, feeling their chilling presence, understanding the profound psychological weapon they truly were for the ancient Persian kings. They are more than just soldiers. They are the silent, inexorable embodiment of imperial power, and their secret lies not just in their martial prowess, but in the pervasive, suffocating terror they instilled. Imagine you are a subject in a newly conquered province. Your people recently brought under the heel of the King of Kings. Or perhaps you are a foreign envoy arriving at Susa or Persepolis, representing a kingdom that once dared to defy the great king. You've seen soldiers before, your local levies, perhaps even a skirmish or two, men with faces contorted in battle, individual expressions of fear and rage. But then you see them. They appear not as a ragged band of warriors, but as a perfectly disciplined, silent, and seemingly endless phalanx. They number exactly 10,000, and their name, Anoka in Old Persian, meaning immortal or undying, is not just a boast. It's a terrifying, almost divine promise. When one falls, another steps immediately into his place from the reserves, maintaining the precise count, creating the chilling illusion that they are, indeed, unconquerable. An endless wave of disciplined destruction. You see them, not in the chaos of battle, but in the calculated pageantry of the royal court, marching in perfect cadence through the grand halls, or on patrol through the conquered streets of your city. They wear ornate tunics, often brightly colored, with intricate patterns, but beneath the finery, you perceive the lean, hardened muscle of men trained for a singular, brutal purpose. Their faces are impassive, hidden beneath felt caps that rise to a peak, or for ceremonial occasions, under golden masks designed to strip them of individuality. You never see them laugh, rarely even speak. Their silence is unnerving, their discipline absolute, almost unnatural. Your modern conception of soldiers, with their individual personalities, their camaraderie, their struggles, simply doesn't apply here. These are machines of war, honed to a terrifying perfection, utterly devoid of discernible emotion. Their weaponry is simple, yet brutally effective. A short spear with a silver or gold counterweight, depending on rank, a visual sign of their elite status. A composite bow, a quiver full of deadly arrows, and a short dagger for close quarters. They carry wicker shields, light but strong, but it's not their individual weapons that truly impress. It's their collective, synchronized movement. When they march, their steps are perfectly aligned, their spears held at the exact same angle, their shields forming an impenetrable, moving wall. They move as one entity, a single, unyielding, silent force. You, the observer, feel a profound sense of awe, tinged with an even deeper, more primal fear. You understand, instinctively, that resistance against such a perfectly coordinated, seemingly endless force is utterly futile, a suicidal act. Consider their training. Not for them the basic drills of common infantry or local levies. The immortals are selected at a young age, often from Persian and Median nobility, ensuring loyalty, physical prowess, and a high level of physical and mental discipline. They are trained relentlessly from boyhood, not just in combat and martial arts, but in absolute obedience, in endurance under extreme conditions, in maintaining formation under fire, and in the unwavering pursuit of the king's will. Their lives are entirely dedicated to the king and the empire. They live in separate compounds, eat specific rations, their entire existence geared towards maintaining their elite status and peak performance. This level of professionalization, of total dedication and lifelong commitment, is a secret weapon that few other ancient armies could match. A terror weapon of unparalleled effectiveness. Their role is multifaceted. They are the king's personal bodyguard, guarding the royal palaces and the king's person with unwavering vigilance, his very shadow. They are also the elite shock troops of the Persian army, deployed at critical junctures of battle. Their sudden appearance often enough to break enemy morale, to turn the tide. But their most profound impact is psychological. Their very existence, their fearsome reputation, sends an unequivocal message to any potential rebel or foreign enemy. The king's power is absolute, unyielding, and enforced by a force that cannot be defeated, cannot be broken, cannot even be diminished. Their name alone is enough to make a seasoned warrior tremble. You feel this psychological weight most acutely when you witness their silent presence. When you are summoned to the king's court, you pass through corridors lined with immortals. Their gaze, though often obscured by masks or downcast, is unblinking, unreadable, yet you feel its weight. You feel their eyes on you, even though you cannot see them. The air around them crackles with an almost palpable tension, a sense of immense, coiled power, a readiness for instant, ruthless action. You instinctively lower your own gaze, avoid eye contact, and feel your heart pound in your chest. Your modern comfort with security guards, with uniformed authority, gives way to a primal sense of being utterly insignificant, utterly vulnerable, a speck before an overwhelming force. The immortality isn't just about immediate replacement on the battlefield. It's also about lineage. The sons of immortals often become immortals themselves, creating a continuity, a legacy of service that reinforces their elite status, their familial dedication to the king. This isn't a temporary assignment. It's a lifelong and often generational dedication to a singular purpose. This fosters an unparalleled esprit de corps, a collective identity that transcends individual lives, making them an almost mythic force. The immortals are the silent, efficient enforcers of the king's will, not just on the battlefield, but throughout the empire. If a satrap becomes disloyal, if a city rebels, if a minor uprising threatens the king's peace, it is often a detachment of immortals, moving with chilling speed and efficiency, that arrives to quell the uprising and restore order. Their methods are ruthless, their discipline unyielding, their purpose clear. They do not negotiate. They execute the king's command with cold, surgical precision, leaving no doubt as to the consequences of defiance. Contrast this with the individual heroics, the moral complexities, and the human frailties often depicted in modern military narratives. The immortals are not about individual glory. They are about collective, anonymous, unwavering service to the imperial ideal, to the will of the king. They embody the absolute strength, the terrifying discipline, and the seemingly infinite reach of the King of Kings. Their existence ensures that the king's peace, however brutally imposed, is maintained across his vast domain. The true secret of the immortals lies in their profound synthesis of military might, psychological warfare, and absolute imperial loyalty. They were a living, breathing symbol of the king's unchallengeable authority, designed to instill obedience through awe and terror, to crush the very spirit of resistance before a sword was even drawn. As you settle into your comfortable bed, surrounded by the sounds of your peaceful modern night, remember the silent, unblinking gaze of the immortals, the rhythmic thud of their synchronized march, and the cold, terrifying certainty that they represented that the king's will, once declared, would be carried out, swiftly and without question, by a force that truly seemed endless and truly seemed immortal. Your modern freedom from such pervasive, chilling displays of state power feels incredibly precious and fragile in comparison. You've journeyed through the dust and glory, the fear and the ambition of ancient Persia. You've felt the crushing weight of imperial expansion, the chilling gaze of omnipresent surveillance, the suffocating intrigue of the harem, the brutal efficiency of the royal road, the monumental cost of perception, the terrifying swiftness of the king's justice, and the silent menace of the immortals. You've experienced what it's like to live under the shadow of the King of Kings, but now you must confront the ultimate secret, the dark underbelly of absolute power. What happens when the king dies? It's not the smooth transition you might envision with modern constitutional monarchies, with their clear lines of succession and formal ceremonies. It is a moment of profound vulnerability for the entire empire, a crucible of ambition, betrayal, and often bloody violence. You are about to enter the paranoid, treacherous world of succession in ancient Persia, where the throne is not simply inherited, it is often seized, drenched in blood, and secured through cunning. Imagine you are a high-ranking courtier, a trusted eunuch who has served for decades, or even a member of the royal family in Susa, perhaps in the late 5th century BC. During the tumultuous period after the death of Xerxes the king is old, his health failing, or perhaps, as with Xerxes, he has been recently assassinated in his own bed. His death, even if natural, is a closely guarded secret for a time, kept from the populace, from the distant satraps, from potential foreign enemies. The air in the vast palace complex, usually buzzing with the sounds of court life, becomes unnaturally still, thick with suppressed whispers, nervous glances, and a palpable tension that you can almost taste. You walk through the grand halls, but your senses are heightened. Every shadow seems to conceal a plotter, every closed door a secret meeting, every conversation a potential trap. Your modern world, with its clear lines of succession, its formal declarations, its peaceful inaugurations, feels utterly distant and dangerously naive compared to this dangerous, shifting ground. The primary secret is that the rules of succession are often fluid, more guidelines than iron laws. While primogeniture, the eldest legitimate son inheriting the throne, is generally preferred, it is by no means guaranteed. The king might designate a younger son, a particularly favored child, or a son born of a particularly influential queen. This ambiguity is a breeding ground for factionalism, for whispers of legitimacy and divine favor. You, as a courtier, must immediately begin assessing the political landscape. Which son has the strongest support from the army commanders? Which queen has the most powerful family backing within the nobility? Which eunuchs, the kingmakers, have pledged their loyalty to whom? Your survival, your family's future, your very existence, depends on choosing the winning side, and choosing quickly and decisively. For the losing side will pay the ultimate price. You feel the paranoia seep into every interaction, every shared meal. Trust, that fragile human bond, is a luxury no one can afford, not even between brothers. Brothers turn against brothers, half-brothers against each other, sometimes even mothers against the sons of rival queens, driven by ambition and fear for their own children's future. The royal family, far from being a bastion of unity, is a viper's nest of competing ambitions, each member a potential ally or deadly enemy. You hear rumors of poison being administered to potential rivals, of secret assassinations carried out in the dead of night, of rivals disappearing without a trace. The walls, which were once Darius's ears for the empire, now seem to be listening for your own misplaced loyalty, your own unguarded word, your own fatal miscalculation. Consider the events surrounding the death of Xerxes. He was likely assassinated by his chief eunuch, Artabanus, in a plot that implicated his eldest son, Darius. Artabanus then attempted to seize the throne himself, or at least control it through a puppet king, exploiting the chaos. You, as a witness to this chaos, would have seen the palace guard in turmoil, the hurried, frantic meetings, the sudden arrests and disappearances. You would have heard the clang of weapons in the night, the desperate cries of those caught in the crossfire, the chilling silence that followed. This is not a peaceful transfer of power. It is a desperate, bloody scramble, a fight for survival where the stakes are absolute, and mercy is a word forgotten in the dark. Eventually, Artaxerxes I, a younger son of Xerxes, emerged victorious by assassinating Artabanus and his co-conspirators, and likely securing the quiet elimination of any other claimants. But his path to the throne was paved with the blood of his father, his brother, and countless others caught in the web of intrigue. You realize that to become king of kings, one often has to be ruthless, cunning, and willing to eliminate any and all rivals, even those of one's own blood. The weight of this understanding is crushing. The true cost of power is not just personal ambition, but the sacrifice of all moral ties, of all familial bonds.